Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 83 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast. I'm Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. With me this week, my co-host in the B chair is Scott Sidlow. How you doing today, Scott?
Yo, Bengals fan for the week, brother. Let's go.
I will take it. I tweeted about this. I don't mind anybody jumping on the bandwagon. Come on, there's plenty of room. I just get really pissed when you leave for no reason. So you better be careful. You better have a good reason to leave. If the team sucks, I guess that's kind of a good reason. But
Marvin Lewis comes back.
I was gonna say they're not now. We're not doing that anymore. We're going forward. We're not going backward. But extra special guest this week, we've got the one and only Scott Bogman. How you doing today, Mr. Bogman?
I'm good. I will not be jumping on the Bengals fan.
Please don't. I know.
So being a Steelers fan. But congratulations on your Bengals making it. I was rooting against them every game, but they keep proving me wrong. And for your sake, I hope I'm wrong again for you. But
don't change. Yeah. Whatever you did, say the same things. Curse at Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow as many times as you want. I'm fine.
It's hard
with
to dislike those guys, man. They're studs. Yeah,
I know.
And you got my guy Mike Hilton on that team. Like, it's a very likable team, which makes me feel weird. So,
well, that's okay. That's okay. We'll take it. And again, as a Steelers fan, I don't fully expect you to jump on the bandwagon. That would be weird. But like we were saying before we recorded, I did cheer for the Steelers. I do cheer for the AFC North when the Bengals aren't involved. But
I can't do it.
I know, and I'm weird like that. I'm not.
You're a better person
normal.
Than me, Andrew. You are. I can't do it.
Not sure about that, but I'm not normal. I'll just say that. But anyway, before we get too deep in, we are planning on talking about some coaching changes tonight. That's going to be the main topic for us, and talking about how that can maybe impact some players for fantasy. Obviously, we are a dynasty podcast. We want to take the long-term approach, and coaching changes can sometimes be a really good way to change values on players. So we're going to get into that. But before we do that, in case someone hasn't heard of you or hasn't seen you around them mean Twitter streets in a while, or hasn't heard you on a bunch of different places, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and kind of where you come from in this fantasy world?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm Scott Bogman. You can follow me on Twitter at bogmansports. You can find most of my work there. I always tweet out all the stuff that I do. I started with Chris Welsh doing In This League in 2014. So I've been doing that for a long time. I just started working. Well, this last football season, 2021, I started working for Fantasy Pros as well. And actually, this is the first platform I can announce that I am starting a new show on Fantasy Pros next week, the Dynasty show. Myself and Pat Fitzmaurice are going to be taking that over for Fantasy
Phenomenal.
Pros. So, thank you.
Stoked for that.
I'm excited for it, man. I'm super excited. Pat, just a great, every time Joe, I'm like, yeah, we're going to get Pat on. Joe, our boy Joe P would be like, lovely human being.
Yes.
What a lovely human being. And he is. He's a great dude. And we're going to be taking that over and, diving right in on quarterbacks to start. So that will be starting next week.
So stoked. That will be high in the rotation.
Yeah, man. I'm pumped for it. And then I do, of course, all my fantasy football work over at In This League as well with myself and the Welsh. We do 2 fantasy football shows a week during the season. Plus, we do Bet This League, which is we talk about football betting, of course, becoming bigger and bigger every single year. So we started that this season as well. Plus, during the draft process, since I do college fantasy football as well, I talk about the draft. So I have In This War Room is what I call that one. And I'll have another one coming out probably the same day as this comes out on Friday. So, lots of work. Plus, that's not even counting all the baseball stuff I do. I'm on Sports Grid as well, CFB and Winning Edge for college football. So, yeah, man, I'm line star for DFS with myself and Casey Bubba. I'm talking to a microphone a lot. Yeah. How long can we go? Yeah. It's just imagine that's all the stuff I listed, all the stuff I do all the time too. And I'll have a mock draft next week as well, coming up on Fantasy Pros.
Yeah. So it astounds me because I feel like I know you, but I have no idea who you are at the same time. And by that, I mean, I feel like I see you all over the place. Yeah. Like, I feel like you're in so many different places. I'm like, is that the same Bogman? Like, that can't be. Like, that guy does so much. So it was funny. We've had Joe on a couple times and he's like, you got to have Bogman on. I'm like, of course we do. Like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing here? Like, it's such a good fit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's really good to meet you. Really good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Get into some weeds tonight. Obviously, you know what you're talking about, right? Whether it's baseball or basketball or football or I don't know, curling. You're probably doing something for the Olympics and something fantasy Olympics and
No,
all that.
I don't have any time for the Olympics, man.
Oh, you don't
Like,
have time for that. Oh, it's
no,
only every
no.
4 years.
Yeah, I don't have time for it. So I don't think I've watched 1 second of
I haven't
the
either.
Olympics
Yeah.
either. So
I
which
haven't
I
either.
feel bad for. Like I want to, root on our country and everything, but I don't know, man. There's too much draft prep going on, too much stuff in the background, too much baseball, and finishing up my baseball rankings for the season as well this week. So yeah, lots going on, but no curling for me, not quite yet.
Well, something we always say on the DAP network is there is no off season. It's just a non-point scoring season. So like it doesn't stop, right? In Dynasty, and whether it's whatever
Best
sport
time
it
of
is,
year.
in Dynasty, this is our favorite time. This is when things can really you can make a big difference for your team. And if you ignore it, you can make your team terrible without doing a thing. So we always tell people, keep grinding, don't give up. This is when dynasties are made. I honestly believe that. And this stretch from January to the draft, I think is really when a lot of things happen, because I think a lot of managers take this time off, and we don't do that.
Yeah.
You're listening to this, you're a junkie, you're an addict like the rest of us. Like you're into this, you're diehard. And obviously, if you're listening to us, you probably have heard of Boggman on 13 other things and followed him for a while. But glad to have you on here tonight, Scott. So let's get into some of these coaching changes. I know there are a lot of them. I'll kind of list them off, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll kick it to Sidlow first, and we'll kind of ping pong around and see what we want to get into. But here we go. There are 9 head coaches that we're going to talk about, sort of, and then there's some other offensive coaches and defensive changes. But let's start first of all with the big coaching carousel. We've got Giants, the New York Football Giants, hiring Brian Dable, which I think, again, huge, crazy idea. Raiders hiring Josh McDaniels. What a guy that is. Jaguars hiring Doug Peterson off the trash heap. Dolphins hire Mike McDaniel. Bears, your Bears, Sidlow, hiring Matt Eberflus. I always want to say that one wrong. Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett. Texans hired old familiar for you, Sidlow, Lovie Smith. Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell. And the Saints hired Dennis Allen. Whew. That is quite a list. That is a carousel and a half. I think there are some interesting names in there, though. Sidlow, who do you want to pick up first? Who do you want to talk about and get into?
Well, I mean,
There's no
listen,
wrong answer.
Here's the thing is you got to look at some of these hires are defensive guys. Not many, as you can tell, only the stupid teams, the Texans and the Bears specifically, and apparently the Saints, I guess. But you got, so for the Bears, Matt Eberflus is really not going to have any effect on the offense or what we care about for fantasy wise. Maybe overall strategy a little bit. He wants to be a little more balanced, whatever. Okay. Every defensive coach says that, right? But it's really Godsey is running the offense there. He comes over with 0 track record, no proven anything, really no system, nothing that we know of. So just really LaFleur's system from Green Bay. That's the only thing that we know that he knows, honestly. And there's a lot of guys like that this year. I mean, there's a few retreads. There's some guys we know. Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. We know what he's going to do. We can look at his Philly track record. He's from the Andy Reid tree. Dable, he's been around. He's been with Belichick and Saban, and we know what's happening there. So it's kind of a long way working around here, but one of the interesting ones I think actually is Ken Dorsey, and he is replacing Brian Dable in Buffalo. And so, listen, not a lot's going to change, right? They're going to keep doing what's working because obviously they're crushing it there. But it will be very, very interesting to see what happens with Josh Allen, right? Is he going to continue on this trajectory? He's been pretty much unstoppable, as really taken over as the QB1, right? Even ahead of Mahomes in some cases. So, it'll be interesting to see if they figure out a run game. They started to establish there at the end of the year. Will they bring in another running back? Will what is the real story behind Zach Moss being RB1 and then being inactive, and then Matt Breida being RB1 and then being inactive, and then Devin Singletary being, what's going on there, right? And then they're going to have some wide receiver turnover. And so that's one to keep an eye on. That's one that interests me in a move that really we didn't even mention because it's not really a big move.
Well,
right?
That's what I mean. It's more of an offensive coordinator change that has a big impact, or at least it could. But it also, like you said, it could have no impact, right? But that's what's so weird. It has a really big swing. I guess, Bogman, are you on that same page with that being the biggest thing for you, or is there some of these other coaches that you feel like are more important to their offense?
I think some of the coaches are more important, but I think that in Buffalo, what Ken Dorsey needs to do is just listen to Josh Allen, right? You need to, and that's what Brian Daboll did. And I think that's just what you need to do if you're any of these coaches. That's why Urban Meyer didn't work in Jacksonville, because we're going to put in my offense. We're going to run things away I do because I won national championships. If you don't listen to your players, it doesn't matter. The players are on the field. They're doing 90% of the work. You can't make them win with your 10%, but you can screw it up. And I think that's the issue with a lot of coaches is I've won and I did and blah, blah, blah. You got to listen to your players. So as long as he sticks with Josh Allen, I'm with Scott, man. I would love for them to stick with one stupid running back. If it's going to be Devin Singletary, then fine. If you want to draft somebody else, fine. We all thought it was Zach Moss going into the year, and he wound up inactive week 1. And Breida, we get it. He's fast. Does he do anything else? I don't know. So
he gets hurt.
He does.
True.
You know what?
Yeah.
He does. He's fast and he gets hurt. So, we might as well be Tatum Bell. So I just, I would love for them to establish something else, but the whole thing works around Josh Allen. You add weapons around him, which they've done. You get that offensive line to be great. They're 5 quarters away from the Super Bowl, this team. So, you get them whatever that would be, 9 quarters better, and you can win a Super Bowl. So, that's what they need to focus on. But I kind of like, well, I shouldn't say I don't hate the Doug Peterson hire, because I think after what they went through with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, when Leftwich took his name out of contention, I think everyone thought Leftwich was the obvious choice. And he should
for him, actually.
Yeah. Great
good
for him. Great for him. If they're not going to listen to you now, they weren't going to listen to you ever. So
that's right.
Stay in Tampa Bay and take over when Bruce Arians retires. He can't be far away.
Which will be next year. Yeah.
It should be. So, I think that he made the right choice, but bringing Doug Peterson is very much a player's coach. The players like him. He worked well with Carson Wentz. We've seen Carson Wentz hasn't done a damn thing since his boy Doug Peterson left. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, we know he can coach up a quarterback. You happen to have one with some of the best traits we've ever seen coming into the league in Trevor Lawrence. So I think that, once again, players coach, it'll work, but you kind of have to be wary, because the reason he's available is because his players did quit on him in Philly. So we know that not a lot of guys are going to come back, but that was a strange thing. So, you can get a little too loose being a player's coach. And I think that's what he did in Philly. But, everything's a learning thing. All these people talk about Josh McDaniels in Denver. That was like a decade ago?
My God.
I mean, come on. The guy was smart enough to, accept a job and then realize he wasn't ready for it and back out. Everybody thought we were waiting for, the hoodie to retire for him to take over New England, and that didn't happen. And I think he steps into a good spot where him and Ziegler can go into Vegas and say, we're going to do it our way, and this is how we're going to do it. And this disconnect between coaches and GMs is just ridiculous. There's no way that we should have a new coach in Miami, but personalities don't work out. And I love the Mike McDaniel hire. I think he's a great option there. A little shaky voice in his press conference, but I think he'll get over that and get better with the media. But man, Lovey, I don't understand at all. I like Lovey's a great person. The dude just got fired from Illinois, and luckily you don't have to recruit for Houston because you just pay your players money. But I don't know, man.
Hey, he had that defense fighting last year, I mean, he had him going. I mean, I think the players love him.
I respect you for sticking up for your boy. He's a great person. And look, changing Illinois is going to just take, some act of God, not Lovie Smith, right? So he could still be successful in the NFL, but I just think this is we took our swing at a couple of the guys we wanted. None of them hit. So we're going to go back and hire Lovey. I have no idea what Casario is doing here.
So it sounds like to me, though, is you kind of like the palate cleanser coaches. Like, like that Lovey is sort of in that same vein, but like something that's like just different. Just if it's not working, change direction, right?
You got to change the culture.
But that's kind of what Lovey is too, isn't it? Like, isn't it the same basic premise where like Bill O'Brien like ran that team into the ground and then left, and like they had an interim coach that I don't think anybody really
But
expected
if that's
to
what
stick
Lovey
around.
was, what was Cully?
Well, I agree. And I think Cully was actually pretty good, but like they had an interim coach that I don't think like Cully, who wasn't really, I don't know if he was really going to stick around. I just don't think if they wanted him to. And so I think there was this logic of, well, if it's not him, let's go to someone else and have a buffer. And that's kind of what Lovie Smith feels to me. He's like a placeholder, like somebody that they can kind of clear the drama, get the palate cleansed for whoever they really want in 2 years. That's really what it feels like to me. And that's kind of why I said the trash heap pile for Peterson, because it feels the same for that too. You know, Jaguars have had a ton of drama this year. Whether it's warranted or not, Urban Meyer did not do any favors for that team. And I just feel like Peterson, a familiar coach, a name people have heard, he's retread, bring him in, people will forget about us. And then by the time we need somebody, the drama won't be there anymore. He's a palate cleanser. That's exactly, and it's not a negative, but I don't see Peterson or Smith even as 10-year coaches of this teim, wherever they are. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not who they are.
Look, if Peterson has success, I think he could do it. I just Lovey is an older guy anyway. Why would you want to bring in anybody for a couple of years? I honestly, I would have, if I didn't find someone. I know you want to hire your head coach in a certain amount of time to get to the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and all that stuff and prep for the combine and everything. But if that guy's not available, I'm not going to just hire an old vet. You know, I know someone has to coach the team, but I'm going to hold out, man. I'm going to try to steal one of these college coaches away. I'm going to go find somebody else that's going to get my guys
I think
excited.
they will. I think they're just trying to keep some consistency year to year and having him there on the defense and the defensive guys reacting well to him. And then now they can put Pep in a position to run that offense with Davis Mills and kind of try to build something there. So, I mean, I don't hate it from that standpoint. I mean, I get it. You're right. It's not, they're a total mess and they should be trying to do something bigger and, you know, more long-term, but I actually don't mind them just doing something as far as stabilization, because that might be the first step in some cases.
Yeah.
So,
and I haven't had to worry about this being a fan of the Steelers either. So I don't, it's not a, like I'm just saying, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole except for one time. And that was between Russ Grimm, Ken Wisenhunt and Tomlin. That whole offseason, I wanted Russ Grimm to get the job. I didn't know anything about Tomlin. Right. So, but then when they hired him and I heard him speak, I was like, all right, I can get behind him.
Well, and I want to clarify, I'm not saying that's what I recommend or that's the right move. It's just, that's the move. That's what it feels like. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of that old way of doing football where it's like, we don't need to let's just get somebody in. Let's get us back on track. Let's walk before we run. All those, like, kind of Tomlin-esque sayings, right? Where it's like, let's just get back in the grind and do the one thing at a time. And we'll, all these little things. And I think that maybe you hit on it perfectly there, Sidlow. It's consistency for Houston. And I honestly, I'm kind of wondering if they're grooming Hamilton to become the new guy after Lovey leaves. And so part of it is like, well, you can't promote Hamilton to head coach. I just don't think that makes any sense with where things have gone. So I'm wondering if this is kind of, again, that consistency, that long-term plan. Let's put Lovey in.
The bridge.
Let's
coach,
shift it.
Right?
Yeah. Let's shift everybody to the left one position. You know what I mean? Let's just move everybody up one. We'll keep what we have. It's kind of working. Let's grow from there. I don't mind that if that's what it ends up being. And I don't
like
see
the
Lovie
bridge.
Smith.
The bridge coach kind of saying is insulting, but I mean, Lovey knows he's old,
Well, and that's kind of what I mean.
Probably isn't.
It's not like it's Josh McDaniels is a bridge coach. That's insulting for Josh McDaniels. It's not even a Mike McDaniels, a head coach. Like, no, he's not a bridge coach. Like, no, that's insulting to a young coach like that. But to someone like Peterson or Smith, they know who they are. They've had their time in the sun. They've had their fun, and now they can come in and be that older grandpa presence to kind of calm the team down, get the drama back to a manageable level, because that, as much as you don't want to say it, that off the field stuff really does affect on the field. I mean,
still one big piece of drama in Houston right now. So
a couple of them actually, but the big one is obviously the quarterback, right?
Right.
And then you've got the Tyrod Taylor stuff too. Like, is he the guy maybe? And like, he got hurt. Maybe he goes. Like, there's a whole bunch of controversy there. Then there's the running back group where they signed 4 guys for 1 year, all in their 30s. Like, what the hell are they?
I feel like if you want to find your QB of the future, you should just sign Tyrod Taylor. So
yes,
the Steelers go get Tyrod Taylor. And let him play 2 games, and then whoever steps up behind him, just don't be Mason Rudolph.
Just puncture his lung, and you'll be fine. It'll be great. Yeah.
Not Mason Rudolph.
Well, so I do want to pivot though, because you were talking before about Buffalo and how that team is going to be very interesting. I'm actually very confused about what to think in New York. Are we now touting Daniel Jones as the next Josh Allen? I mean, that's too easy. It's not
if you're trying to trade him.
Well, this is what I mean. This is what I mean, though. If you're paying attention right now, that's clearly not true. But if you're not paying attention, you can be sold that narrative. You can be told that story and say, Daniel Jones just didn't work in that offense.
We've seen Daniel Jones run a little bit too, right?
Yeah. He's got the same kind of skill set that, obviously Dable like that in Buffalo. He's going
to sign there, so don't worry about it.
Well, that's a whole different game.
I want Trubisky in Pittsburgh. I do.
That would be interesting.
I would much rather have than Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins. I would much
as a Bengals fan, I do not want that. But as a fantasy fan, that would be amazing. That would be a good fit. I hadn't thought of that. Trubisky in Pittsburgh would be an interesting
Tomlin
fit.
The whole season, and I kind of felt bad for Ben when he was saying it, but come on, Tomlin talked about how he wanted a mobile quarterback, and I'm like, well, no one you have on the roster is Josh Dobbs is the most mobile guy, and he's not
technically on the roster. Like,
I mean, he's got an earpiece and he's standing next to Ben on every play. He's more of an offensive coordinator, but he's the most mobile guy you got back there outside of putting the ball in Najee's hands. You know what I mean? So I just Malik Willis makes a lot of sense. I just don't think he's going to last.
Well, yeah, there's going to have to be some moving of picks around. I feel like they're going to have to move up if they're going to do anything. And I don't know if the Steelers are the kind of team to do that.
Yeah.
I know the Bengals aren't either.
Colbert's last year, he might take a swing. So we'll see.
Maybe I could. Yeah, I've seen weirder things, right?
Sure.
We saw Ben
Urban Meyer hired as a head coach in the NFL. So
kind of. I mean, was he really? It's hard to even say.
He did have the job, for a little bit.
So speaking of that, then let's pivot to this. Do you remember last week when everybody was talking about the Vikings and getting Harbaugh and how it was like a locked in thing? And he was like, yeah, never mind, I'm out. And then they go and get Kevin O'Connell. And I'm not sure what I think of Kevin O'Connell. I don't know much about him. Sidlow, do you know a lot about this guy? What are your thoughts on Kevin O'Connell? Like, are we looking at Kirk Cousins as like a new, has new life for Rocky on his 30 teams?
Yeah, here's Kevin O'Connell. Essentially, he was a quarterback in college. He was drafted, I think, or by the Patriots. He bounced around, practice squad guy. He didn't really play. But he spent some time under Belichick there. And so he came in 2017 was his first prominent position with Washington. And under Shanahan, who was there? McVay, I believe, was there, and then all those guys moved on, right? That whole staff.
Shanahan
and McVay, right? They were there. Mm-hmm. He was quarterback's coach, and then I believe he became the OC at one point. But you think about that system, he actually, the last few years, has changed it up a little bit with the wide zone scheme that they're kind of famous for. He's been more adaptive, running more duos and even power at times. And that's really changed the Rams offense a little bit. And you've seen them have a lot more success. So he's looking at more like the quick passing game, get the ball out of Cousins' hands, spread it out a little bit with those receivers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because that offensive line will need some turnover there to fit some of that scheme. Because remember, that's Kubiak has been there in Minnesota, which is very similar to that Shanahan system. Essentially, Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan's dad ran those systems together. So there will be some overlaps, certainly. And I think it's good news for offensive skill players there. We'll just have to see who he brings in on the offensive side to help him run things, because he's young. He's from those systems. But I think there's similarities to like a Zach Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Being under McVay and then coming in and having to find his way. And I'm sure there'll be a couple learning years there. But the real kicker is Kirk Cousins then, right? So he's a massive contract for this year. And so he's likely going to be there. I keep seeing him in these, trade rumors and whatnot. It would be a Carson Wentz type trade.
They want to put him in Pittsburgh so bad, but Pittsburgh doesn't have the cap space, because he's going to make like $40 million this year.
That's
38 or something. Yeah,
it's wild. It would be very equivalent to the Carson Wentz deal, and obviously the Eagles were forced to get rid of him. Minnesota's not in that position, so it doesn't really make sense. I don't see him going anywhere. So we'll just see, because if he's not running the play action stuff that we know Kirk Cousins is good at. You're right. It's an interesting hire, but it's it's copycat league, right?
Well,
you see what Zach Taylor does, and now you're like, well, let's go get the next guy. It's O'Connell.
So I was going to say, like, Kevin O'Connell didn't really, I don't know, this is going to sound terrible, and he's better than I am at so many things. It's not, I'm not trying to talk down, but Kevin O'Connell, I don't think he really called the plays in LA. Like, what was he actually coordinating there? You know what I mean? Like, it worries me. I don't worry is not the right word, but like, it concerns me to be like, what did he even do? Like, what would you say you do here? You know what I mean? Like, what, are you just running practices? Like, and I'm not trying to
talk to the customers.
Yeah, so the engineers don't have to, right? But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, is he literally? I talk to the players, so Sean doesn't have to. Like, is that literally his whole job? And he got to. I mean, that was kind of Zach Taylor's job, so I'm not really bad mouthing it much. It's just like, I'm curious. Like, what do we know about this guy? I guess Bogman, do you have a take on this?
What I read about him, because I didn't know a lot about Kevin O'Connell. I read a little bit about him when he got hired, and they said that the thing that impressed ownership in Minnesota was he had a plan around Kirk Cousins to win and presented that plan. So that's why it was him and Jim Harbaugh. I think, I don't know what the hell happened with Jim Harbaugh. I think what happened was they got him in a room and they went, this guy is a psychopath, and there's no way we can hire him.
Correct.
Jim Harbaugh is the only person that made Colin Cowherd likable for any amount of time to me. So
that was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, I can't believe I got to agree with Cowherd on something here, but booting Jim Harbaugh off of this phone call was the absolute right decision. So
funny.
I just Harbaugh is an unbelievable egomaniac. I know people don't want to, he's a college coach. Yeah,
Sidlow's a Michigan fan, so like he definitely knows Harbaugh. That's why I wanted to get his opinion. Yep.
I mean, look, it can work.
He got to the Super Bowl. I knew he wasn't going there.
So. He got to the Super Bowl, and I think him interviewing with Minnesota was almost like sticking it to Michigan for making him take that pay cut last year. I think that it was more about that
leverage.
Leverage. And getting your money back and all that stuff. Then he actually
and he lost McDaniel back to Baltimore, and Gaddis is unhappy, and I mean, there's going to be a lot of shit. That was a great year, and we had to enjoy it because it's going to be kind of fucked up again for a bit.
He pissed off Gaddis for sure. So
Gaddis sucks anyway.
Hey, tell us how you really feel.
My buddy John Lobb. I don't know if you guys have had John on before, but he's a great dude and amazing dude. And he's a big Michigan fan too. And he called the Michigan offense under Harbaugh for so long the Neanderthal offense. We're gonna run it with 6 different running backs up the gut 50 times a game and throw it 12 times. That's what we
drag our knuckles up and down the field. Yeah, exactly.
The least innovative offense in the history of offenses. And it works against everybody against Ohio State. So
last year, what did they have? 2 running backs and no receivers and nothing else and a shit quarterback. So what did you need to do? You need to run the ball. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, you play to your strength for sure, but I mean, I don't know a lot about Kevin O'Connell. I just know that the trope for the last couple of years has been, all right, we got to interview the 3 top candidates plus this guy shook Sean McVay's hand in the airport, so we're going to get him in to interview too. Right. So that's kind of how it's been recently.
Well, and I think too, what you kind of said this, if it's as simple as he came in with a plan of how to use Kirk Cousins, that might have been enough, right? Because like we were talking about Kirk Cousins, he has a $45 million cap hit, the 3rd largest in the NFL. I mean,
who's bigger than him? Rodgers and who?
I don't think Mahomes is yet, but I can look that up. But I'm saying, like, even if you're looking at it like that is crazy, that's too much. So I'm guessing that offense, that GM room, the interview was like, well, we're definitely not getting rid of Cousins. You got a plan for that. And Kevin O'Connell was like, here, let me show you my 12-point plan. And no one else did that. And so they're like, well, he's the guy, right? Like, we're just going to go with, he's got a plan.
45 million.
Yeah, 45 million cap hit, which is nuts. It's the last year of his contract, but he's 34, according to Spot Track here. And it's just like, that's a massive cap hit for Kirk Cousins. He's not worth it, obviously. But like we were saying, you can't get rid of it either. You're going to have to do give them 10 million in Cousins and a pick for something. You know what I mean? You're going to have to sell the future, and it just doesn't make sense. So I think that might be part of the reason, but it's also, like we were saying too, he comes from the McVay family tree. He comes from a couple of family trees, actually, like Kubiak. He's got some familiarity with some of that. So there is some overlap. And so it kind of makes sense the more I look into it, and it hasn't been that much yet, but I am curious to see how that goes for that offense. I'm a Justin Jefferson fan. Right. I want to see him do well. I like Adam Thielen, even though he's getting older. I really do think that Irv Smith has a chance to come back from that injury and be a stud for fantasy. So I'm hoping that all pans out. I love Dalvin Cook. I mean, like they have a lot of good skill players. And if you look at it, it kind of, not all the way, but it kind of lines up to what you could see with LA and the Rams and what they've done. You know, they had Kupp and Woods and Beckham, and you could kind of put, I don't know if you want to really put KJ Osborne as their third in Minnesota, but like you could kind of line these guys up in a similar way, and you could force this, you know, blur your eyes a little and see the same offense. So maybe that's the thought, right? I just don't know enough about him to really get excited, but I'm not unexcited, which I guess is something.
Right. Yeah, I think this is going to be, we're going to know pretty quick. Like halfway through the year, whether, all right, O'Connell is crushing this and the Vikings are doing great, you know, and great first year, whatever, or this is a disaster. They got to get Eric Bieniemy in here. This is a nightmare. I think it's going to be one of the two.
And I even think it could be at the draft we start to see some of that too, because this is going to be like, how does this team go? Where are they going? What do they need? Where are they going to do this the right thing? Are they going to trade back? Like,
especially if Rodgers leaves this division, it becomes wide open,
big time.
So
it almost is already, even with Rodgers there, because at any minute in week 3 he could just quit. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I got a great podcast deal, I'm going to go. Like, we don't know. Like,
I was talking about this the other day. If Aaron Rodgers retires, can you imagine just the eclectic group of people you're going to have at this Hall of Fame ceremony between Brady fans, Steelers fans, and Rodgers fans? I mean, it would be
Antonio Brown fans.
Yeah.
So
real quick, a lot of drinking. Yeah, that's for sure.
Real quick, we talked about Kirk Cousins cap number 45 million. You're right, it is third. Aaron Rodgers 46.6. Matt Ryan 48.6.
Wow.
So he's the starting quarterback for the Falcons next year, in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah, so they want to put Matt Ryan in Pittsburgh too because Ben. I mean,
it's the same problem
happening.
Yeah, it's just not happening. But this is where
it's going to be Jimmy G. So
I agree. I do this all the time though. I use Twitter as kind of like a sounding board, and so sometimes I'll put a thought out there, and then somebody will be like, "That makes zero sense. You're an idiot. Here's why." And I'm like, noted. Like, okay, I didn't think of that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't know. I was just between calls at work and just threw something out there.
Dude, have you put a mock draft up on there yet? So
not a full mock draft.
And that just crushes your soul.
No, but I'm probably not ever going to. That's not really
luckily
my lane.
I don't have enough people paying attention to me to get that much, but I do get the I think I put Matt Corral on the Giants because I was like, hey, look, you know, maybe a new.
This is I love that actually.
I don't mind that.
This is before Dabble got hired, but I
love that.
I think with Dabble, you have you have a mobile quarterback in Josh Allen. Maybe you want to bring the same type of thing in. Maybe Danny Dimes isn't the answer here. Maybe you can flip him and get a 3rd or 4th round pick, something. And the first comment was, the Giants aren't taking an effing quarterback. What are you thinking? And I was like, well, there you go.
Welcome to Twitter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I could have put Tom Brady. They're not gonna take Tom Brady. You crazy? Yeah,
well, I've done some fantasy mock drafts for Fantasy Pros, and I put that article out, and I get like a couple comments that are like, "There's no way that this person is valued." I'm like, it's literally like it's subjective. It's a rookie draft. I'm just rankings. It's just in a fun way. Like, calm down, dude. Like, you're taking it too serious. And I see it all the time with NFL mock drafts where it's like, this is literally somebody just like game playing it all out. Like, why are we upset? It's just one random guy. I mean, again, just one random guy with a microphone.
On
like,
Twitter
calm down.
Right.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like spend your energy elsewhere, man. Like, seriously, just why you got to do that? Anyway, that's a sidebar for another day. The other coach, I don't want to forget about this because I do want to hear some of your guys' thoughts. I mean, we can get into the whole Josh McDaniels, Mike McDaniel kind of conversation, but I'm really curious to see what the Denver Broncos are going to do with Nathaniel Hackett. They just signed all of their receivers. They've got everybody locked in. They've got Javonte Williams. They've got Noah Fant. Like, they've got their skill positions except for quarterback. And of course, Hackett comes from Green Bay. So there's all that narrative you can build. Does Aaron Rodgers go from Green Bay to Denver and all this? I don't think he does. I just don't think that makes the most sense for anybody. But does Nathaniel Hackett really help that offense get better if we don't know who the quarterback is? Or is it really just riding on who the quarterback is at this point? What do you think, Sidlow? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quarterback's important, but you got to remember Hackett's actually pretty versatile. He started his coaching career under John Gruden, so that's kind of old school West Coast. Then
check his emails.
Then he was with if you want to get rid of him. Then he was with Doug Marrone for a while too, and Marrone's kind of known for that old school power rushing attack. So cool for Javonte Williams, right? And then obviously he was with the Packers. He knows how to use 2 running backs. So we'll see if they re-sign Melvin Gordon or bring someone else in. So yeah, I mean, all the pieces are there. I think it's actually kind of hard to screw it up. I mean, honestly, like they should be average just as a baseline. They should be a middling offense, and with any sort of quarterback, they should be a top 10 offense.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Let's say they keep Bridgewater, right? And if you just change I hope not too. Don't get me wrong. We're saying let's keep the team as it is, and you just change the coach to Nathaniel Hackett. Does that move the needle at all positive for you? Because it does.
Well,
for me.
It does, because Fangio was such an old piece of shit who
Fangio did
so little anything with offense.
You need to get him on Madden.
Shermer was hamstrung. He couldn't do anything.
You got to get
too bad, because I actually like Shermer as an OC.
Yeah, you got to get Fangio on Madden to learn, clock management too.
Yeah,
it's the worst part of his game, and his game was pretty bad. So, I'm with Scott on this one. Nothing's really going to matter until they switch that quarterback out. If you switch 1 for 1, maybe they're 9-7, maybe they're a playoff team. If you're pulling the very best out of Teddy Bridgewater, which we haven't got in years from Teddy Bridgewater, and probably will never get again. Unfortunately, I think Teddy's a great dude, but he's not an NFL caliber starting quarterback anymore. So, I think if you drop in a Russell Wilson or Rodgers, and I don't know what their, I haven't gone and looked at their cap number or anything, if they can even afford these guys, but they're the definition of quarterback away. And I'll push back on the Rodgers definitely isn't going to do it. I think it's probably not going to happen. I think it's more likely he would retire than go to Denver. But we did just see Tommy Brady go from New England to Tampa Bay and win a Super Bowl. We just saw Matt Stafford go from Detroit to LA, and he's in the Super Bowl. So I don't know that it's that crazy to think that he would go to Denver. Now, the path to the Super Bowl gets harder, because now you're in the same division with Kansas City and Los Angeles with Herbert and Mahomes. Yeah. So you might be the 3rd best quarterback in your division, if you take a step back because of age, if you're Aaron Rodgers. So, but you're still a much better team with that guy. And, I think Pittsburgh and Denver and somewhat similar situations roster wise. They're both kind of a quarterback away, although Denver's offensive line, while it is not good, is much better than Pittsburgh's, because Pittsburgh's is awful. Which is the worst offensive line I've ever seen.
Denver has a ton of cap space, so they can sign whoever they want.
Well, and even then, like Denver, it says, and this is according to Spot Track, it has Denver with 39 million, and the Pittsburgh Steelers shows 32 million. I mean, that's pretty close, and 32 is more than I thought the Steelers had. So maybe this isn't the right number or something. But you're right; they're very similar kind of openings, I guess, and very similar options for a quarterback to go to. I'm not sure of anything. Let's be clear. Like
both tough divisions though. Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Very much. Both up and coming too, with young quarterbacks. With Herbert and Mahomes, obviously young and going to be there for a while. Same with Burrow and Lamar, kind of, in the AFC. Like, same logic. That AFC right now, all of the AFC is pretty tough, right? And I think that's partially why Brady left the AFC. He goes, I got a much better chance going to the NFC, especially the NFC South, which is riddled with holes all over the place.
Right.
And it's East Coast. It's going to a team where they're going to let me run it. Why not, right?
And you get to live in Florida and not Boston.
I just don't see Aaron Rodgers going the other direction, going from the NFC, where he's had a pretty good run with Green Bay and has had a pretty good career. I mean, I wouldn't say stellar, but I would put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's a really big debate. But at the same time, you got to look at it like, if you're going to go to the AFC, you're going to struggle, I think, on that transition. And I don't see Aaron Rodgers wanting to struggle. I don't see him wanting to go somewhere and build something. That's just not what he feels to me. Like we said before, Aaron Rodgers is the kind of guy who wants to go somewhere like a Brady did and go land somewhere and be done. As much as that's perfect in Pittsburgh and in Denver, the context is very different. It's very different in those two teams.
Murdered behind the Steelers' offensive line. Pretty much any quarterback would. So, true. I don't see Rodgers. The cap hit's too big. There's too many hoops to jump through to get him to Pittsburgh, just to, like you said, make it harder to get to the Super Bowl. So,
and I'm kind of looking at the, cap space here in general, and it looks like, and this is going to sound kind of crazy after what we just said with the AFC being so tough. The top 7 teams with cap space are all in the AFC. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to get tougher. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing
Miami
here?
too? I know Jacksonville's 1, right?
Miami is 1.
Miami's 1.
Los Angeles 2. Jacksonville
Okay.
3 in this spot track. I've got Miami, Chargers, Jaguars, Bengals, Jets, Broncos, Colts, and then
Colts.
the Seahawks. And then the Steelers. So it's like, and then the Commodores. I'm going to call them the Commodores. Shout out to my buddy Jeff Bell, because no, either way, but like, they're just, I'm not calling them the Commanders. I have a hard time.
Commies?
It's going to take a minute. That's why I like Commodores, because it's like, it's even like lamer. You know what I mean? Like, oh. But anyway, the only other coach that we really haven't gone into, and I'm not sure how much there is to get into, but is Dennis Allen. I mean, Dennis Allen in New Orleans, that team needs a whole lot of stuff. They've done some crazy cap work, and they've got Taysom Hill, and
they're only 76 million over the cap projected for next year. So
yeah, I was going to say,
they're
in the
Dennis
worst.
Allen doing? Well, can he get himself into worse situations here? Let's go to Oakland, where we have no cap space, and our quarterbacks are Terrell Pryor and who's the other guy? McGloin, the Penn State kid, right?
Yeah, Pat McGloin, right?
Matt
McGloin, Mike McGloin, whatever. All I know is Terrell Pryor, as a quarterback, ran a 92-yard touchdown against the Steelers when Polamalu was way past his prime, and I think it's still the longest. He just whiffed. He went the wrong way. Pryor ran past him. And Pryor's running 4.3. No one on the Steelers running 4.4 faster at that point. Yep. And then they're strapped by the cap. They're trading away first-round picks because they can't even afford to sign him. And now he takes over for the Saints, who are in the exact same scenario. This guy is the opposite of Josh McDaniels. He is not learning from his past mistakes at all. I mean, it's got to be tough to say no to an NFL head coaching job when someone offers it to you, especially because
he was already there.
I understand. Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, he's already
went through
here.
all of this already. Like, it was almost like he saw it firsthand. He saw the car crash coming and was like, "Hey, do you want me to drive?" You know what I mean? Like, he's like, "It's just, what are you?" I don't get it either. But at the same time, maybe he sees.
This is a good team.
But again, maybe he sees this as an opportunity to redeem himself from his past failure, right? And be like, "Let me try it again." He's been there. Maybe he knows some of the numbers are fake. You know what I mean? Like, because they did this crazy stuff with Taysom Hill where they signed him to like a $40 million deal that was not really a real deal. Like, maybe he knows some of the inside sauce. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here.
So apparently Pete Carmichael is stepping down as the OC and taking on like a different role or something, which doesn't make any. Why would you do that? Like, he's getting out of the way is what he's doing. He's smart, right? So that offense, as we know it, the Peyton Carmichael offense is not going to be there, and they still have nobody to catch the ball. We don't really know who the quarterback's going to be. So from a fantasy standpoint, then you got this Kamara stuff going on. I mean, it's a disaster the right there. Are in
not
trouble.
Marching in. That's for damn sure. The Saints are marching out. And so while we're here, one of the reasons I wanted to get into this, of course, is that Dennis Allen, being a defensive coach and, been with the team, but I'm not sure he's the right fit and all this. I mean, Bogman, what are we doing with Kamara? Have you made any trades? Have you seen anything? What are you doing in dynasty leagues with Alvin Kamara right now?
I'm holding until I see what goes on. I just can't. I'm not going to be the guy to sell in a panic. Same. I'd rather go down with the ship in that scenario. So, it's all he said, she said at this point. I think isn't his court date in March at some point. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just going to hold and see what happens. And I think, it's almost similar to, I mean, we've seen this scenario happen a bunch of times, right? So
unfortunately, yes.
Todd Gurley had something like this too. Where,
Joe Mixon.
Yeah. Joe Mixon.
Rice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those were domestic violence.
Some of those are different.
Like being an idiot at a bar, So, I mean, they're going to drop a whole bunch of money on this guy and he's going to go away. I mean, I think everybody knows that that's going to end up being what ultimately happens. So I'm just going to hold Alvin Kamara because he's going to be, I can't imagine not being the entire offense there next year.
Well, that's kind of where I was going to get into. We were just bashing this offense. Like, what are we going to do? It's give Alvin Kamara the ball, I guess. Like, just, it doesn't matter who you get at this point. Bring in a Tyrod Taylor, right? Like we were just saying, like bring in Tyrod, have him hand the ball off to Alvin Kamara and they'll get another quarterback next year, right? Like it's kind of a punt year for this team. You don't have enough cap space to make a hire that like a big splash free agency
make the playoffs in that division.
And that's where it gets even weirder because the way that division is set up now with Brady exiting and maybe that whole team blowing itself to pieces, you've got Carolina. Who knows what's happening there? You got Matt Ryan earning all this money, but not really earning. Like literally, the winning team of the NFC South could be 7-10 and make the playoffs. I mean, it could happen. So like maybe that's what Dennis Allen is like. Maybe I can sneak into the playoffs and use this to get to a better job. But back to Alvin Kamara for a second. We talk about this a lot on the show, Scott and Sidlow, I should say. We talk about this a lot. Don't buy running backs right now, but I'm kind of buying Kamara if the price is right. Like if somebody is panic selling, I am all for that. Like, why not? Let's add a little risk. Now's the time to do it. You know what I mean? Like if the cost is low enough, there's nothing but reward, right? I mean, Sidlow, is if Alvin Kamara was offered to you for, I don't know, let's say 2 second-round picks, would you say yes to that?
Yes.
Right? Like there's a price that everybody's okay with it. Like I got in my inbox the other day. I got their Alvin Kamara for my James Conner and Dalton Schultz. It's a tight end premium, but I already had Waller, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'll take Kamara for that. Like, like tight end 12 or 10 or whatever. Like that's just a flat circle. Like I can find 30 guys to fill Dalton Schultz's role, and James Conner might have 1 or 2 more, I don't know, plays left in the NFL. We don't know. So so like I'm happy to tag Alvin Kamara, but I also think that there are people out there trying to sell Kamara, much like I am now in that league, for his actual value. Now is not the time to do that. You cannot do that. You have to wait for a good blurb. You have to wait for, even if, let's say his court date is, I don't know, March 8th. March 9th, it comes out that the court case is settled, no charges filed. Trade block Alvin Kamara immediately, because his value is going to rocket back up. You don't move him now. But I'm definitely sending offers in those other leagues where either I'm rebuilding or I'm in the middle and I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm sending offers like 2 seconds in it for Kamara, 2 seconds in Connor, 2 seconds in Drake. Any of those kind of things.
You tell anybody with Alvin Kamara on the roster, trade that criminal. He's not going to do anything.
I'll take that stress off your plate. I'll be happy to just.
I'm rebuilding anyway. Man, let me give you some stuff, and you give me Kamara back, and it'll be fine.
You're really burning me on this trade. Those second round picks are only going to go up in value. Kamara could not play another down. I mean, honestly, that video comes out, we're screwed. You're not going to get better value if that video comes out. You might as well trade him now. Like.
Honestly, where do you guys stand on the I offer you a trade and I send you a paragraph to justify it? I can't stand it. Is that
I won't read it?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
I was trying to think of a way to say that, but my logic is I don't look at the paragraph until after I've rejected it, like until like in my head, or like I see usually it's MFL and it comes through and I see the trade offer and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And I usually what I've started doing, a new tactic, is I don't immediately accept or reject. I look at the email and I close my email and I go do something else. And I come back to it and I go, yep, still feeling like that's a bad trade. Like it wasn't a snap decision. Right. But then on that second time through, I'll read, because I've already decided, and I'll read the thing and be like, oh no, none of that makes sense to me. Like, no, I'm not believing any of that. But yeah,
that's why I'm a terrible trader, because I'll read it and then I'm pretty deliberate about making moves like that. So I'll read it, the trade offer, and then I'll go, oh God, let me think about it for a couple days, and then I'll forget. I just it's something that happens, and then I get hit up. Hey, what about this? Oh, okay, yeah. And I had one of my guys in. We do a 3-sport league: basketball, baseball, football, and you can trade between all 3 of them. And I got this offer, and this guy came back. He's like, "All right, look, I know I've hit you 4 times. You haven't responded. This is what I would need. It was kind of like I haven't negotiated against myself. And he's like, this is my last offer, okay?" And I was like, "Oh well, I'll do that one." Because he bumped it up a little bit. Yeah. And then I'm sure he was super frustrated with me. Yeah. But we got the deal done. So, it did end up working. So that was nice.
We talk about trading a lot on this show. Obviously, with our Find Me a Trade, we're going to get into here in a second. But the point of it, in my opinion anyway, kind of circling back on this, is send those offers out, right? You never know what that manager is going through. And I think too, if I'm the Kamara manager, and let's say I get 3 offers in my league from three separate managers, I already now know who those managers are. If I do want to sell them, if I do want to get rid of them, that's who I'm going to first, right? They showed some interest. They're probably going to pay more. Whether they will or won't is a whole different argument. But in my head, that's where I start. So even if you're not sending what I would call a valid offer, like let's say I got an offer for, I think it was for, I don't even remember who it was, but it was like 2/3 and 2/4 for someone. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, why would I hate that? What are we doing here? Like, what am I, even if it's somebody like Robbie Anderson, I'm not doing that. Like, what are we doing?
Those I feel no guilt about hitting reject and never coming back to it.
Of course. But it's still put that in the back of your head. Like, that guy went after my guy for cheap. Maybe he'll pay up. Maybe, what about a second and a future third? You know what I mean? Use that logic later on. You don't have to save it. And some people, like I know John Bosch, for instance, writes it down as like a notebook for everybody. I have a league sheet for that I try to keep track of, but too many leagues, it gets out of hand. Point being is keep some of this in your head. Like, if you do get a crappy offer, don't just immediately throw it away. Save it in your inbox, right? Reject, save it in your inbox, and put it in a folder somewhere in your email if you're playing on MFL, and be like, who do I need to go attack on this? Let me go search Kamara in my search bar on Gmail and say, here's all the Kamara trades that were offered to me. I didn't take any of those in January or February, but now we're into August and people are needing running backs. Those guys came at me first. I'm going to start with them because they may pay more, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my head goes on this. And again, it's part of that long game because by August, we'll have a ton more info. We don't know which direction, good or bad, but we'll have more info and that can be helpful. So I think that pretty much covers where I wanted to go on the coaches talk. Was there, I guess, Bogman, was there anybody you wanted to talk about more or any thoughts you still had before we move on?
I mean, I think we covered it. I think Mike McDaniel is that's a weird situation that he's going into, but I think that's a good hire. Scott, like you liked Eberflus, right? I mean,
yeah.
In not in terms of fantasy, but in terms of a coach hire, I like that too. And just bringing some stability. I mean, let's just get Justin Fields. Let's just get him out there and let him throw the damn ball down the field for God's sake. I don't understand hamstringing these guys sometimes. Like Miami did it with Tua last year too, and don't let him throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field because he's got a pop gun arm or whatever. Then why did you draft him?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Same thing with Justin Fields. If you're gonna get him out there, let him do it. It'll be the same thing for Trey Lance this year too. Should he see the field? If he's going to get out there, let him do it. Well, not according to Joe Montana, but just let him get out there and do it. I never understood hamstringing these guys. Yes, you don't want him to turn the ball over. If he starts turning the ball over a bunch, ratchet it back, but don't take it away from him to start. That's ridiculous. So.
Well, and I think you're hitting on something there though, is that in both of those situations with Miami and Chicago, the rookie quarterback was taken by the previous administration. So it kind of hamstrings you a little bit as a coach because that guy's not going anywhere. And
but
so,
that goes back to listening to your players.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going to say, like, that's the perfect idea then is you're not moving the quarterback, then you have to move with the quarterback, right? And there was a phrase, I've said this
and
before,
hype him up to trade him if you really don't like him.
At the very least.
Good stats, at least, for Christ's sake.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying there's a phrase that I've said before. I think I've said it on this podcast even. If you can't get out of something, get into it. Right. Like if I can't get out of Tua, then I'm going to make Tua the best damn quarterback I can be. And I think Mike McDaniel came out with that. There was that audio clip or, video clip or whatever. He's saying like, I'm going to make you the best quarterback of all time. That's what you're talking about. Like, even if you don't believe it, that's what you have to do. You have to hype him up. You have to give him confidence that you're not going to go anywhere. It's not the Kirk Cousins situation. You know what I mean? This is the exact opposite. This is a young quarterback with a lot of, a lot of potential and a lot of upside. And you kind of need to corral some of that in and give him confidence to boost it to that. And I think Mike McDaniel's not a bad fit there, but I just don't know how that offense is going to look. It makes me a little nervous. I mean, Gesicki could be amazing. I mean, if he comes and brings a lot of that San Francisco style, I mean, Gesicki could be the next Kittle, and we got running backs all over the place. I think Duke Johnson's still on that team, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of options. They may go get somebody. So Miami is I think it's going to be an interesting game to watch with them. Sidlo, do you have anything on Miami, I guess, before we move on, or anybody else?
I do. It was a part of my two final notes. Miami hired the man, the myth, the stalker pervert, Wes Welker, as his if you ever look up an old Wes Welker photo, he definitely looks like a pedophile. But anyway, he's a great wide receivers coach, and Jalen Waddle stock up, baby. Wes Welker is his coach, his wide receivers coach. So Jalen Waddle is already flying up in these rankings, and
15 catches a game. Let's go.
Only good for him, man. So stoked for my guy Waddle. And lastly, my final note is I'm curious to see if McAdoofus makes it longer than Joe Brady in Carolina did last year. So
I think Cooper Kupp just won MVP, by the way.
We will.
Hey,
did
good
he?
job, Cooper Kupp? Good job.
I don't have the sound on here, obviously, because I'm with you guys. But it was Brady and Rodgers and Kupp and Taylor. It could be offensive player of the year, but I don't know.
That's amazing. That's amazing. There you go.
Well, it's all for fun. But I guess the other thing you were talking about there, Scott, and I want to go back to this, Ben McAdoofus. I love that. That's a terrific nickname. But has McAdoo ever, and this is going to sound terrible, has McAdoo ever been good or great? Maybe. I feel like he's been good-ish, but
I think he had a couple good years as the OC. So he was with Green Bay, remember, under McCarthy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so it was McCarthy's offense. So again, what we're really doing, I don't know. But then the Giants offense, he had a couple decent years there. The Victor Cruz, there was a Victor Cruz year, I believe, in there. A couple other guys. So yeah, I think he had some decent success as an actual offensive coordinator, more so than some of these guys we've seen recently. So I do give him a shot there, but again, it's going to depend on the quarterback because you can't do anything without a quarterback. So what are they going to do? The problem is that could be a spot for Rodgers, right? You go, wow, look at this division. Here's
NFC.
a great spot. Their defense is young and up and coming, and there's some nice skill pieces, but then it's like, look at this coaching staff and look at this, how does this work? But then again, Rodgers has familiarity with the offense, and that could be a good fit, right? So I think it's kind of like a dark horse thing there, but yeah, I just don't know what's happening with Matt Rule and all that, and I think it's too much in flux. I don't think we're going to see a big name quarterback go there, but I know the owner is going to try to get somebody. So
maybe Watson.
Interesting
We've
one.
Heard about that for years. I feel like
Ben McAdoo. I just like seeing a picture of Ben McAdoo. If you guys ever saw the movie The Burbs with Tom Hanks, right?
Oh yes,
he was exactly like the neighbor. The goofy neighbor with his weird haircut, I don't know why that just reminded me of that movie, but Ben McAdoo.
A good one.
Like
It's a deep cut.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. Yeah. Well, all right. So I think we've covered a lot of the coaches. Obviously, we still have to see a lot of this play out. At this point, it's pretty speculative. We're trying to, piece together narratives from different coaching trees and kind of build a puzzle without a picture.
Is Eric Bieniemy that bad of an interview?
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure he wants it. I just don't know if he wants it. I've talked about this for years.
Then why is he interviewed 36 times?
I don't want to get into the why has he gotten an interview question on this podcast.
Well, not why, but why does he accept it?
No, why does he take it?
Yeah,
because I think he feels like he should. There's this weird double-edged sword to this, and maybe this is a good rabbit hole to go down for a minute. I think Eric Bieniemy is one of those guys that gets offered to be a coach, and he goes, "Well, all right, I'll go check it out." And then he goes and checks it out. He goes, I'd rather just be with Pat Mahomes and not have to do anything.
Pat Mahomes. Yeah.
Like it's honestly like, I don't blame him for checking, but I also don't blame him for ever buying. Do you know what I mean? Like he's the perfect window shopper. He checks a box for the owner's team. And I hate saying that, but that's kind of what this Rudy Rule is becoming. Yeah. And so it's an easy, because again, he hasn't been hired. So it's easy when they pass over him. It just becomes this narrative, self-fulfilling prophecy in a way where it's like, he never gets hired. So no one ever hires him. Right. Where it's like, and again, I'm oversimplifying a very complex situation, but that's kind of where my head goes with this. And so I think, why does he take it? Because he's like, I'll go check it out. And I think Bieniemy's a good guy, but he's had some drama in his past, and there's some potential that if he gets a head coaching job, some of that stuff becomes more, obvious or noticeable. And there's some potential PR backlash that maybe teams don't want, but they bring him in because he checks them. Again, I don't know. I've heard from different people that I trust that he doesn't interview very well. So again, part of this could be just he doesn't really want it. So I think that's why he doesn't interview well. Like again, I just think none of us know, but that's my pure guess. That's my pure guess.
It was offensive player of the year for Cleveland,
okay.
By the way.
Okay.
So my
good.
bad. Yeah.
Those people listening are going, "You're an idiot." No, what the hell? I love that when we do live stuff. We do this. We do this on Thursdays a lot during Thursday night, but also we're familiar. It's like no, they come back. I've listened to it myself. I'm like, don't sit. Oh, there it is. Anyway, okay, so I think we've said what we need to say on coaches for the third and final time. I think we've covered this. I do think there will be more talk coming up, and this is not the end of coaching carousel discussion. We will have a lot more discussions in the future here on Dynasty Junkies and in the Dynasty community in general. Obviously, on Twitter is a great place to interact. If you want people to hate your thoughts and to kind of give you mean opinions, that's always the place to be. But with that being said, let's get into our final segment of the night, which is, I would say, is my favorite segment. This is the thing that just brings me joy. Find me a trade. Let's get a trade done. All right. So I will read the beginnings of this. If you want to read the settings, I'll start it out. But this was submitted by listener Tommy at Tommy BI 467-81407. I'm hoping those numbers mean something. I'm hoping they mean something. They probably don't. I did reach out to Tommy. I did not get a response. So we have no comments from Tommy this week, which is going to be interesting. But at the same time, it gives us a lot of flexibility to be like, well, do whatever the hell you want then, right? We don't know what we're doing. So let's go pick. So it's kind of nice. The league is an Apex Amateur Dynasty 225. I don't know where that name comes from, but I love it. It's a terrific, very specific name.
Apex Leagues is a managed commissioner.
That's what I thought, service. Right? And so it's the 225 is the name, the number of that league, right? Like exactly. And his team is Steal the Show. I'm going to bring it up here in a minute, but if you wouldn't mind starting with some of the settings, Scott, let me get that up. That'd be great.
So it is a 12 team. It says one cube I don't know what that is.
One quarterback, Sidlow. We did this
oh,
before.
Fuck. One quarterback. So I guess it's not super flex.
Not super flex.
I'm just messing with you, Tommy, but this is a super flex show when I'm on it anyway. All right, 12 team, one quarterback, 22 roster spots, short bench. I mean, I think 22 is that's not very deep, honestly. So anyway, start 10, one quarterback, two running back, three wide receiver, one tight end, one flex, and a peak and a def. I don't know what those are.
What is PK? I'm not familiar.
Penalty kicker. A place kicker.
Coach?
It's a kicker, guys. It's a kicker. Remember those?
Oh, I don't play with those.
Oh god.
No, most people don't. It's okay.
It's an old school league. So
we try to cater to all sorts of listeners, right? There are definitely.
Right.
I do IDP, but I don't do kickers. So
this is different. This is a short roster, short bench. I felt like this was similar to the one we did the other week. I think Rocky and I did one of these. And it is a different challenge when you're doing this because I'm used to like 45-man rosters and you start 12 and it's super flex. Like I kind of like to twist my brain a little. So I will run through the roster here real quick and just kind of give one quib. What'd you call it? One cube? One cube.
One quib. Yeah.
So this guy, he's got some great cubes on his team. He's got Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, and Trey Lance with Jordan Love as a backup. My goodness, that is a lot of quarterbacks in a one QB league. I love it. Running backs, I would say his best running back is down here in his injured reserve, J.K. Dobbins. He's also got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chase Edmonds, Miles Sanders if he's still valuable. Keyshawn Vaughn could have some spike. Jeffrey Wilson gets the ball every now and then. So it's got some running backs maybe there. All right. Receiver on the IR, A.J. Brown, best receiver in my opinion. Then you got Deontay Johnson of your Pittsburgh Steelers, Mr. Bogman. CD Lamb, DK Metcalf. He's still got Henry Ruggs, which I think is terrific. Like, way to just keep going down with that shit, my friend. But Julio Jones and Kenny Golladay, who are both in the declining years of their fantasy relevance.
You just wanted somebody with more yards than Jalen Reagor. That's why he's keeping Ruggs.
I cut deep. I like it. And then at tight end, he's got George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. Stellar. That's a pretty
good
damn
roster,
good team.
Man.
Pretty damn good team. So let's start with you. What trade did you find for us today?
Yeah, so you can go ahead and cut Ruggs in a league like this with a shallow bench. He's going to prison, so you can just cut him. He's not going to play for a long time, if ever.
Yeah.
Get that roster spot back. It does look like he has some picks for next year, which I think I actually screwed up in my trade. But that's all right. There's a team, 1976 Raiders. That was the top team in the league in the regular season. Tom Brady just retired. He doesn't have any quarterbacks. Anytime I can trade a quarterback in a one quarterback league, especially when I have Mahomes to lean back on, I'm happy to move any one of those guys, whether it's Lance or Lawrence. But so my offer to him for this particular team was trade Lance and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And like we said earlier in the show, try and pounce on that Kamara deal. And I said Kamara in a second just to balance it out, but I don't believe that team has a second. Again, I get confused by that future picks thing in MFL. I don't think he does. So Lance and CEH for Kamara, I would love to get out of CEH for sure. And again, I just want all the studs you can have as a general strategy with a shallower roster. I want high-end players as much as possible. I did look at potentially packaging for the team that had Jonathan Taylor to try to put together a package for him, because I think you have a lot of not all the picks that you have are certainly valuable to send out. And that would be the secondary thing I would look for you to do. Again, you didn't give us a lot of information on what you want to do here, but it looks like you're ready to contend. And with this particular draft class, I would love to move the two firsts you have, package them with CEH, package with Dobbins, either one of those moves to go get an elite running back like Jonathan Taylor. I would love to see you make that move and just go all in for this year and crush it.
I like that. Yeah. And I'll just kind of use mine at the same point. Mine was the same kind of trade, Lance and CEH to Bringer of Rain for Akers. Same kind of logic. Like, go get yourself a better running back, consolidate that down. So, I mean, we're on the exact same page. I think CEH is expendable. Lance is expendable. As much as he's got upside, you don't need it when you've got Mahomes and you've got sorry, we're drawing a blank. Who's other quarterback?
Trevor
was at this point.
Lawrence.
Trevor
Jordan
Lawrence is
Love.
right. Like I don't mind Lawrence as a backup, right? Mahomes, you're not going to get much better than Mahomes. So what are you trying to do there? You've got Kittle and Pitts. I mean, that's solid at tight end. You've got a pretty damn good crew of receivers on a short bench kind of team, except for Ruggs, like we said. So I mean, yeah, running back is the only weak spot, and we're on the same page there, Sidlow. But Bogman, what kind of trade did you come up with?
I mean, same logic, man. You trade from your strength, and the strength of this roster, even though it's a great roster, is a quarterback. So I had the same exact idea as Scott. It was trade a QB to the 1976 Raiders team for a running back. He's got the Raiders team has got Dalvin, he's got Kamara, he's got Eli Mitchell, he's got James Conner, and Brady retired. His only other QB is Tua. So he needs a quarterback. You have an abundance. Anyone always could use a running back. So go get a running back from him and give him one of, give him one of the upside guys here. Obviously, you don't want to trade Mahomes, but, if a Mahomes deal got you back Jonathan Taylor and
100% in a one quarterback league. Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
You could use one of your million draft picks and other quarterbacks to replace Patrick Mahomes. And now you have Jonathan Taylor, who's probably the most valuable dynasty piece there is right now. Go do it. Do something like that. But yeah, you have to deal from the strength of your team and the strength of the team. Yeah, Rodgers won MVP, by the way. The strength of your team is quarterback, so trade from that spot.
Well, so that was where I was going with bringer of rain. His only QB on the roster is Jimmy Garoppolo.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another guy that needs one. Yeah.
Well, again, like that, his only QB.
Would you rather go into the season with Jimmy or Tua right now?
Tua, hands down. Jimmy may not even have a place. Well, as much as we're saying he could go somewhere, but I'd rather have Tua, hands down.
I would pick up.
I don't trust Jimmy.
Waivers.
There you go.
In a one QB league, there should be somebody, but looks like they roster them all in this league. So.
I was gonna say there are some teams like this guy's got Kyler, Baker, and Deshaun Watson. You know what I mean? Like their players are stacking quarterbacks in this league. This guy's got Taysom Hill, Tyler Huntley, Jalen Hurts, and Davis Mills. I mean, like, woo. Like you don't need to. I wouldn't roster all of those players. There must
clearly
be
they value them, so take advantage.
Well, except for the guy that's got just Jimmy G. He's like, I'm riding with Jimmy G, and that's all I need. But I think that's a prime candidate for someone like Lance too, because maybe Jimmy stays and you got Lance as the backup. Like you could kind of sell that. That was kind of my thought there. But again, to kind of go back to this for a second, he does have 2 firsts and 2 seconds in this next draft.
Yes.
So some of that stuff too. You in a 1 QB league, you could do a QB and a second for ETN. Or one of those guys in that like Chase Edmonds, who I think he already has in his team, but one of the like Tony Pollard, like one of those guys that has a lot of upside too. Because your quarterback, you're not going to get a lot of value in a 1 QB league. But if you add a second round pick to that, you've already got 3 other ones in the first 2 rounds. Like I don't mind losing a second and a quarterback you have extra of for a running back you could start. So that's kind of our thoughts on that.
I don't think any of the picks are going to add to his starting lineup this year. So use them to package up and either kick it down to a 23 first if you can. And or package them and get those elite players on your roster.
Yep. And something else I like to do when we do these find me a trades is I try to find like who recently changed value that you can try to capitalize on. Right. And I think Lance is one of those guys that there is a lot more narrative hype than maybe production hype right now, because Jimmy G kind of stalled at the end of the year. He didn't take his team to the Super Bowl, and they spent all this draft capital on Lance. Like he's got to be the guy next year. And I mean, even Fantasy Pros, I just heard the podcast from earlier this week or last week, even they had the Oracle, Matt, can't remember his name now, Matt F. Friedman. So he was on there and he was saying that Lance could be a QB1 and Yates was agreeing with him. And I'm like, I don't disagree, but there's a ton of hype around Lance's name. Now is the time to sell when that hype is like it is. I think that I'm not saying it's wrong, but it could be. And I think now's the time to try to capitalize. So we're all on the same page here. I think, Tommy, you've got some really good ideas. Hopefully they're not too similar. But I think you got the basic thesis here is move a quarterback and something else to upgrade your running back position. I think we're all on the same page there. So with that said, that brings us to the end of the show. So we made it. Everybody, it's over. You did a terrific job listening to our rambling about coaches and our finding of a trade. But before we disconnect for the evening and go back to watching the rest of the Aaron Rodgers show, Bogman, why don't you tell people where you are and where they can find you and what do you got coming up that we can find your work?
Well, once again, I appreciate you guys having me on and thinking of me to talk about these coaches. It was a great time. I appreciate the invite. You can find my work on my Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'm at inthisleague.com is my main website where the Welsh and I are doing all of our work, all of our ranks, all of our stuff is over there. I also work for Fantasy Pros, so you can check me starting next week with Pat Fitzmaurice on the Fantasy Pros Dynasty show. I also do the individual defensive podcast with my guy Gary Davenport. It's more of an in-season one, but we'll have some draft stuff coming up here really soon, and we'll probably have a show after free agency as well. So you can check me out there. I do college football with Nick Allen and Xavier Trish on College Football Winning Edge. I do Line Star with Casey Bubba. Yeah, I'm on Sports Grid for 3 hours a week. So if you like my voice or my ideas or my dumb references, you can find me somewhere. I'm out there. So once again, appreciate you guys having me.
That might be my favorite way. I'm out there. Just you can find my dumb opinions a lot of places. That's really
right.
well put. Really well put. Well, we really appreciate having you on, Boggman. This is a good time. I know, especially with you taking over that Dynasty podcast for Fantasy Pros, we're going to hear a lot more from you. And
so awesome.
Excited, man.
Looking forward to hearing what that show is going to become. I'm excited. I know it has a lot of potential over there. So really happy for you on that one. Congrats. I know we obviously have a lot of things we want to try to get through here. So I'm at Andrew Hall FF. You can find me on Twitter. My host, obviously, for the night anyway, Scott Sidlow at Scott_Sidlow. If you hated tonight's show, blame Rocky because he wasn't here. His handle is at Dynasty FF Addict. He'll be editing this, and we'll love that part. But also make sure you subscribe.
I was told to say that, Rocky. They told me to do that at the end, so I'm sorry.
But no, definitely follow us at Dynasty Junkies. You can follow the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network at DAP_network. We tend to go live a lot throughout the week on the DAP network. You might see the fantasy timeline. You might see some trade addicts here and there. Obviously, us on Junkies, we're live almost every Thursday night, as much as we can be. But definitely subscribe, rate, review. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like. We can try to make this show better. We always tell people to tag us in trades. If you've got questions about stuff, you want to hear us talk about something, tag us on Twitter. I know Rocky does a great job managing that, and we kind of talk about things throughout the week. But with all that said, obviously, it was a great show. Awesome time, though. But, Scott, I'll let you take us out of here.
For the homies in the comments, for Tommy, shout out to Tommy for finding me a trade. For my man, the other Scott Bogman. For my man, Andrew Hall, and myself at Scott_Sidlow on Twitter. Junkies out.